How much is $100,000?
It's about 60 lakhs, approximately.
Really?
A little more, but I'm just rounding it off.
I think we spent a little more than that.
Yeah, we did.
Welcome to this week's episode, and chances are if you do business, any sort of business, you realize that you cannot avoid having an online presence. Now, most companies focus on the fact that this cost of business needs to be mitigated or reduced, instead of asking themselves why the same website that they built about 5 years ago isn't getting them the same results today. And that's what today's show is about, right?
This episode is for people high up in a company who end up having to take a decision about spending a lot of money on a website, and they can't comprehend why they should be spending that much money and what they can get from it. So in this episode, we're going to try and help them understand how they can structure a website to help them differentiate themselves from their competitors.
Why are we doing this episode?
The reason we're doing this episode is because literally for the past 3 years, ever since we built Dasta, we've been getting a bajillion inquiries asking us to build them a website like Dasta.
Right.
And they ask us how much is it going to cost, and our usual answer is about 60 lakhs, and they're like, what? Like really? Like 60 lakhs? I know I can get it built for cheaper. They don't understand what went into building Dasta, what makes Dasta Dasta.
Right. And that's kind of why the show title says $100,000.
Yep.
And the intelligence aspect is what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly.
So, how to intelligently spend $100,000 on a website, and more importantly, why?
When you think that something as intangible as design and communications can't really affect your bottom line,
you usually end up with marketing and advertising tools that don't help you inherently mitigate your business risk.
that's what this podcast is about.
A behind-the-scenes look at how we go about doing what we do, mitigating business risk. I'm Jude Lazaro.
And I am Mark Lazaro. And you are watching our weekly video podcast.
I think we should get started by introducing them to Dasta.
You should.
Yeah. So in late 2013, we met with a real estate startup that had an amazing product. And not only did they have just the right attitude to build real estate product at that time, they had the absolute potential to differentiate themselves in the market by actually pushing the envelope of what could be considered industry standard, as far as the real estate industry was concerned in southern India. We partnered with them in 2013, and we did quite a few things to accomplish this pushback or this disruption that they wanted to cause within the real estate industry. This episode is focused on one of those things that we did, which is we built them a website that actually shook a lot of people up. Right, so that's about a decent summary, right? Yeah. Okay, how did we go about building this website?
Just like any other project we would start, we did a little bit of research, we did a survey, we took the top 4 or 5 builders in Bangalore, analyzed how they break down their website, how the content was structured, and what we found was they all had a similar pattern. Let me show you what that is. Okay. So here we have a project from Shobha. You're going to notice a location map, master plan, floor plan, and specification. And somewhere down here we have a gallery. And the next one, we have prestige, location map, master plan, floor plan, specifications, a gallery. And we've got Purvankara, who've got location in their overview here, specifications,
Plans,
master plan, floor plan, and a gallery.
Oh, wow.
And Salarpur, they also have location, master plan, floor plan, specifications, and gallery.
That's almost textbook.
Yep.
Okay, so we established that there is a pattern
Yeah.
or a
and-
formula.
Exactly.
What's wrong with the formula?
So there's nothing actually wrong with this formula. In fact, we ourselves have used it in some of our older projects. But in case of Dasta, it was extremely limiting. The biggest problem was that it was a brilliant project. There was so much to say, and we couldn't use the structure to do this product justice.
There was so many groundbreaking pieces of sort of architectural and engineering intelligence that had been planted in the product that trying to put it into this space would have actually done away with like 80% of what was good about it. Right. So how did we go about solving the problem of a formula that wasn't necessarily useful to us? And how did we also solve the problem of differentiating this new entrant in this market? How did we do that?
Yeah. So what we did was we identified the 3 stages of a potential customer, and we broke down the website into 3 pieces.
Okay.
So for someone who's just shopping around, who is trying to figure out which apartment building makes sense for them, we had the building page.
So for someone who is just shopping around saying, should I put this on my consideration list?
Yeah.
We put all of the data that they would need on a page called the building.
Right. The second stage that we identified was someone who's considering making Dasta their home. They're a slightly more serious buyer, and that's where the apartment page comes into play.
So this has all of the information that someone who now has considered this building as possibly a viable option would need to say, okay, are the apartments within that building what I want?
Exactly.
Yeah? Okay, so what's the third stage?
The third thing was the engineering page. This was for pretty much anyone who was sold on Dasta. They knew that they wanted to buy here. They were just interested in what went into putting their home together. The quality of the products, what materials they're using, all of that detail.
There was a beautiful, section here which actually detailed out the exact number of doors and windows and, and which model and how many numbers.
Exactly.
So you literally knew there were 297, versions of that particular door or 120 numbers of this particular sliding door. And that sort of attention to detail was something that these guys were actually doing in the back end.
Yeah.
And we were exposing that up front. Now, that being said, a human didn't need to be contacted actually, right? Because all this content was up there for someone to read.
Exactly.
In an extremely non-linear manner. So it's always a struggle to sort of maintain or fight with, users online to try and keep their experience as linear as possible. And I think that's something that we've had, enough of a wrestle with the market to try and say, hey, watch this first and look at this second and look at this third. And that's why it's kind of apparent that we just manifested all 3 pieces of information straight up there, and you can access all of it. Okay, hang on. That I see 2 other things there. It says updates and pricing. Why are we talking about that?
We'll get to that soon.
Okay, at this point, if you're feeling curious, then pause the video. Here's the URL, should be down here. Go and take a look at the website because you can follow along as well. And what we're going into now is a understanding of how we prioritized the information into these 3 bins.
So we started by incorporating this principle of transparency. Literally everything needed to be available online for the customers to go through it. And we went into so much detail that we decided to make an ad about it.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So
I like to be informed. Whether it's a laptop, a pair of headphones, before I buy it, I will know more about it than the guy in the store. So, naturally, I would want to know as much about something as expensive as an apartment.
I've been on the Dasta Concerto website for half an hour.
I feel they've really taken the trouble to make me understand them. Everything is online. Like, everything.
Yeah, I remember the discussions that kind of surrounded this about the fact that, if this much of information was available online for a mobile phone, then why not an apartment?
Exactly.
Which was way more complex.
Right.
Right.
In order to break this down further, let me show you some of the customer triggers and USPs that went into this content.
What's first on the list?
The Jali.
Yeah. This was something that I remember was, sort of a massive upgrade because you have an engineering feature that wasn't necessarily possible within the cost of a product of this sort. But these guys had, made an engineering breakthrough and figured out how to manufacture it. And I think the only other buildings in town that had sort of a feature like this at the time were the Marriott and, five-star hotels of that sort. So that was massive. Yeah. The next thing I'm seeing on the list is the basement.
Exactly. You can comfortably park a BMW 5 Series in here.
Because the architect was so specific about the fact that, dude, you can actually drive a BMW 5 Series in here and, 3-point park it. And you won't have any issues. He says, no one who stays here is going to own one. And he was pretty accurate with that statement. So it was...
Yes, but it had some aspirational value to whoever's buying it.
Yeah, because you know how big the car is. Yeah. All right. And then you've got Vastu, which is an unavoidable trigger. Yeah. It's more of a dude, is this thing Vastu compliant or not? And we actually demonstrated, I think, Vastu both for the building overall in terms of at a site plan level, as well as on an apartment level.
Then we have the amenities, you've got the clubhouse, the swimming pool, the amphitheater.
This stuff is RERA compliant today. In a day and age where the law is now making it restrictive to the extent that you just can't put up random pictures. Back then, the time that we spent to transform the exact product that was going to be delivered into real images and into meaningful diagrams, it's kind of paying off in the long run, right?
Let's move on to unified grid. This was a very interesting concept. Basically, the entire floor plan was based on a grid that can be replicated, and whether you bought a 3 BHK or a 2 BHK, most of your rooms would be the same size and would look exactly the same with an addition of an extra room in case of a 3 BHK.
Right. So the thing was that no matter which way you swung in terms of product, you were getting kind of almost the same value.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this was something that I remember it took them months to get us to understand this because they were still in development. But once we saw it, we were like, this has to be visual.
Next, we have Supercharge your home.
Oh yeah, the customizations.
Exactly.
Yes, this was super interesting. Because these were also sort of engineering conversations that then were lifted out of engineering and made into sort of product feature. The third bedroom, which doesn't necessarily have to have a sort of brick wall or a hollow block wall. The swapping of the living and dining. This was actually the input of a customer who saw the original design and said, hey, you know what? I'd like those swapped over. And you'd think, what's there in sort of swapping, a living room and a dining room? All of the wiring in the wall changed. So they gave the customer an option of saying, hey, you're going to move into this apartment in, so many months. You can decide where your dining goes.
They made it a feature.
Yeah. Yep, and of course the puja room and the storeroom. This is also something we spoke about extensively in episodes 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. We should tell them about that later.
Yeah.
Nice. I like this, yeah. And then you've got the kitchen.
Yeah.
Unlike most builders, these guys were actually giving people a partially finished kitchen with cabinets enough so that you could move in and then start to add more on top of it.
Yeah. And a much bigger counter space in comparison to the industry standard.
Yeah. No, so if you're following along, then spending time on this website is definitely a good idea because we're moving at lightning speed here.
And then we dug into questions that people usually have when they're buying a new building, the FAQs. We can't possibly go into explaining all the FAQs, but here's 2 of them. Okay. The first one being, when will my project be delivered?
That's true.
Yeah, this was such a pressing question in the real estate industry that we decided to put a countdown clock because that's how confident the builder was. He knew exactly when he was going to deliver the product and basically announced to the world with a countdown clock.
And as you come back here, this number starts depleting and you can follow along with that.
Yeah. So We were so confident that we even made an ad about it.
I love that countdown clock. It tells me exactly how long I have to wait. I can turn off my engine and relax.
At the Dasta Concerto website,
They have a clock that's counting down the date of delivery of my home. I've prepared my finances. I'm planning the interiors. Shifting is going to be so peaceful. I've never seen anything like this before. It takes commitment. Might as well buy from someone committed, right?
Right. So the second most popular question that people had was whether this building has water and what the water situation was about.
As far as this particular product was concerned, or the location was concerned, which was Sarjapur, there was basically no sort of municipal supply of water. So everyone had a question about this, and it was worth diving deep into. But more than that, these guys had done an awesome job of engineering a very different water treatment system, and changed up the piping within the building, and it required a ton of explanation. I remember we spent about maybe 3 or 4 months just understanding the problem, speaking to about 2 consultants that they had brought on board, kind of piecing together the mathematics of it, the actual engineering of it, and saying, okay, how do we tell this story? Right. And interestingly, I think this is probably one of the sections in the Dasta website as a whole that is a very nice mini piece to kind of go through, because it has flavors of content that come together to support the idea. There's the main documentary where you have the builder, the architect, and the water consultant talking about exactly what they did and why they did it. And then below that, you've got an animated diagram that actually displays on visually how the piping within the building worked differently, how the the RO system that they had planted in would actually deliver drinkable water to a specific tap, and a whole lot and just a slew of other data. And then of course the calculator, which was huge. Give them one more reason than just awesome, which is, man, it's going to save you money, and that was huge. I remember this itself took a lot of time, because we sat down and actually kind of reverse engineered how these costs would pan out and how you'd save money. I think the best way to kind of give people a sense of what's going on as far as this section is concerned is to play that ad film. Because it kind of gives you a rough idea of what, it hints at what it is.
The average human being uses 160 liters of water a day. Makes you feel guilty, doesn't it? To give you an idea of how much that really is, we threw just 10 liters of water at this guy. Because, well, it's not safe to throw 160 liters at someone. Anyway, would you feel less guilty if I told you that out of the 160 liters that you use every day, you can recycle about 70 liters of that same water? That's about 40% of the water right back at you. When you buy a home at Dasta Concerto, it comes with a water recycling system that does just that. Oh, and did we mention you'll save a ton of money too? Visit dasta.in/water. We've built these elaborate diagrams and calculators to show you how it works.
So if you've gone through the website, you'll see that we didn't neglect all the essentials, the location, the master plan, the floor plan, the specification. It was just, all of it was integrated into the content seamlessly, basically improving the project exploration experience.
Yeah. True, and there was no way that if we stuck to that format, that we would ever have been able to do all of this justice. But that brings me back to the golden question. What did we spend $100,000 on? And it's no laughing matter, because we did.
All that money went into the research, the putting together of the entire customer journey, the building of the content, and tying the entire thing back into their sales funnel.
Very true. Also, I think the plurality of the budget was spent on creating custom content that supported unique features and unique things that would make the customer definitely stick with the product, especially like in the case of water. There's no way that complex story could be told just one-on-one with somebody in a room. You needed all of that to tell the story. Right, and a big part of this $100,000 budget was also spent on keeping the customer updated about what was going on site in an extremely visual and in an extremely public way. So it was very accessible content. We should probably switch to that, click that button that I've been dying to click. So month on month, customers could come here without having to ask anyone a question, without having to bother anyone, and they'd get a complete picture of what was going on. I am actually particularly in love with this little feature here, which was literally, that's what it was in November 2014, and that's what it looks like in September 2016, and you can actually visually see the difference. The confidence that customers had in the product because of this move was so palpable, because they wouldn't stop talking about this sort of a feature. They said no one does it, and it's true. Not many builders actually get down to doing something of this sort, and this is the value of planning to do something of this sort early on in the project and then just sticking with it, because it's actually not a lot of effort when you drive something with a process. So part of building this website was also building the process to go out and get this data month on month and then put it back in there.
Yeah, and a website like this is not about the images or the paragraphs or the HTML or CSS or whatever code goes into it. It's all about the rich content that we put into it.
Yeah. And actually a lot of people have this doubt, because they come to us and say, what does a website cost? And you go, a website costs pretty much nothing. It's the content that's going to cost you your life if you do a good job of it. But it's the content that can also make it one hell of a sales tool. The one thing, of course, we get stuck on is, it's a great question to ask you. Where's the UI?
Yeah.
That age-old conversation about, where's the website UI? I need a fresh UI. There is no UI.
Yeah. All of that has disappeared into the content.
The backgrounds are images. There's very few buttons. It just flows from piece to piece. Yeah. And that's what you get when you build custom content.
And that's not all we built, did we?
Oh yeah, that's not all we built, because this story doesn't end here. We just showed you the product side of the website, and it's still not a justification of where we spent $100,000. And next week, we're going to come back and sit down and talk about how this website transformed the sales funnel, it transformed the sales team, and it transformed the industry. Because we broke a couple of rules within the real estate industry, and next week is where we'll manifest that and really truly tell you why this $100,000 website eventually turns out to be not just cheap, but cost effective, and not just cost effective, but a massive saving.
On that note, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, and
add us on LinkedIn. Yeah. So depending on what your flavor of social media is, you can tune in to different aspects of Lazaro. This is Mario, I'm Mark. See you guys later.